Welcome back to the channel, guys. It is me, 80 Summer44, and today I am joined with Doodle, and we're going to be discussing about the downfall of Italy for both the Serie A and for the national team. And I believe this is the first time Doodle has been here since, what happened pretty much a few weeks ago.
Since I think the last
And
time I've been on this channel is actually the year after the Europa League final. I'm pretty sure that was like after the
yeah,
last time. Yeah,
yeah, and I think that was like a month ago. so,
yeah, yeah.
so,
This is obviously also kind of
yeah,
like a part two of the video that we did a couple of years ago. Actually, about
yes,
Italy.
yeah.
A lot has
Yeah, we
happened
actually did
since
a
then.
Yeah, we did a video a few years ago discussing about this, and I feel like we got to do another updated edition of this
Yeah,
because,
it hasn't gotten
yeah,
better since then.
it's
Really, if anything, it's gotten worse.
so. Yeah, like I said, we're gonna go into this, guys. We're gonna discuss about Serie A, and then we'll discuss the Italy national team. And like I said, guys, this is a huge jam-packed video, so buckle up and enjoy. Get your drinks, get your meal, get your uh, do just be prepared because this will be a huge video to discuss. So let's start with Serie A. So, Doodle man, let me get my piece first, and then go to you.
Hmm.
Obviously, as you guys know, in that Champions League final, I didn't want PSG to win. I've always had my reservations with PSG, primarily because I just never really liked clubs that are oil clubs. To be quite frankly honest with you, I just never really liked those teams in general, and I've always been one of those guys. But even with that being said, I still have to put my emotions aside and realize that PSG actually have been playing really good this season. Like this is the PSG I actually enjoy watching. This isn't like just a PSG or just about vibes and whatsoever, because that's when PSG's been kind of been more known for the last couple of years, right? And for Inter, obviously, I know a lot of Barca fans didn't want to support Inter in this final because, let's face it, they eliminated us in a heartbreaking fashion, you know. But in the day, and also a lot of Barca fans believe that we were robbed against them, you know. A lot of accusations have come through, so it was kind of like a lose-lose for Barca fans either way because it was two teams we just generally didn't like. But I think one thing we could all agree is that most people can agree that this final was a huge letdown because this was a final that we were expecting to be such a close final. We had two teams from two leagues that had to make finals for that had to won the championship for quite so many years, and the fact that it ended 5-0 is embarrassing. Embarrassing. Like, and we were actually having a Champions League final tier list a few weeks ago discussing about this. This is even worse than Juventus and Manchester United. Like, and those
Absolutely,
teams did bad in those finals.
absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, it's just sad. And because I was really looking forward to this final, I was really pumped and excited for this final because I felt like this final could have been so interesting. It was like this in a match that never occurred before. And like, it was like kind of like the first time in a long time that we had a final that was genuinely 50-50.
Or
But
so we
yeah, I
thought.
mean,
Or so we thought.
we thought, we thought. So ended up obviously not being 50-50. So, Doodle, man, obviously give me your thoughts and interests. Just give me a quick reaction and then we'll discuss about the whole league as a whole.
Right. So, as y'all know, you probably people that are watching this already know that I'm a longtime supporter of Inter. I've watched this club for like so long. I've seen the highs, the lows, everything. I'm gonna just get to the point, and I think I've already people that I speak to probably already know. This for me, I already said, was the darkest day in Inter's history. The darkest, because you gotta put things into perspective. Like, first of all, this is the largest margin of defeat in Champions League finals ever. No team has ever lost by 5 goals in a Champions League final. Second of all, as y'all know, 2 years ago, Inter lost against Manchester City. And the difference is that final, we like, as Inter fans, we didn't really have many expectations. We just wanted to, like, see the team, do their best. And honestly, we did. We played very well in that final. We just came up short. And yeah, it hurts to this day. It still hurt, but like, so we thought that, what? Even though we knew that, maybe PSG were the favorites, like maybe we as Inter fans expected this to be a hard fought final. I mean, even like so many people, not just Inter fans, thought that this was going to be a tough final. Like even many PSG fans online said they were expecting this to be a close game. It was not a close game at all. No, we don't really know the exact reasons why. Obviously, as actually, although today, funnily enough, it basically got confirmed by Al Hilal themselves that they actually made a deal with Inzaghi. Like they actually agreed a deal with Inzaghi right before the final, which Inter fans have been speculating pretty much for like months now. This has been going on. Like these rumors have started back in April, and it's eventually just culminated into this. It still doesn't excuse what happened because the players themselves look. I think Inzaghi definitely deserves a lot of blame because the way he set us up, and if that's true that he did indeed agree a deal with Al Hilal right before the final, that's a really bad look. And then leaving after this. Then, of course, as everyone knows, Inter went trophyless this season. We lost in the Supercoppa against Milan. Supercoppa is not a major trophy, but still, up 2-0, losing against your biggest rivals. Sad. We lost against them in Coppa Italia. And, of course, we ultimately really just bottled the Scudetto against Napoli. Like, there were so many times we didn't win, like, almost any of our big games in Serie A this season. That, including against likes of Napoli, didn't beat Milan at all, didn't beat Juventus, lost at home against Roma, drew at home against
Yeah.
Lazio as well. A lot of problems,
Yeah.
like, and overall,
Yeah.
it's been a disappointing season. But like for me, this final takes that from a disappointing season to a downright disastrous season because this final, it's not. I already said like, and every Inter fan has been saying this. This is not going to get redeemed until Inter win the Champions League. This is going to be
Yeah.
hanging on our necks like that long.
And sorry, and sorry to just interrupt you there.
Yeah, go
And it's
ahead.
not just the fact you couldn't even beat any big teams. You let a lot of late goals conceded.
That's the thing, yeah. And it's actually perfect that you have Bastoni's picture because so many times there was a stat we conceded so many late goals, especially after Bastoni went off. Now, not all of those came in his position, but Bastoni is Inter's best defender by far. It's not even a debate. For me, he
Yeah.
has been our best player overall this season, and every Inter fan agrees. He was really bad in the final. I do agree that he was really bad in the final, but at the same time, who wasn't though? Like
Yeah.
everyone
Everyone's pretty much bad.
like everyone was really bad in the final. And that the
Oh,
thing is though, it's like I mean, talking about the final, like if we had to like really I mean, honestly, after 3-0, I was checked out. Like I don't even remember the fourth and fifth goal that well because I was just at that point, I was just on my knees. I just
and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. The loss
it
is
didn't
already
even
done.
matter. I mean, like it was just DiMarco this final. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like he deserved
So
like DiMarco has to like come out like DiMarco once like when the new season begins, he needs to like go out of in the and out of he needs to stand outside the Duomo di Milano and literally give the whole city of Milano like an apology because the final performance here that he put in as a born Inter fan who has come through our academy, that was just disgusting. Like
I
so many.
yeah. So let's move on from the final itself because I know
Yeah.
you don't want to discuss about
Yeah,
much
it's
more.
just rough.
Yeah. So I want to discuss about Inter because let's be real. As bad as this final loss was, Inter still made the final. And
But that's
you
the
know what the
thing.
crazy
That's the most hurtful thing. I think it's like I refuse to, but I do truly believe something happened behind the scenes that I like. Again, it's not. I don't know if it's just about. Look, I'm not excusing the players, right? And I'm not saying that
Yeah.
they should be excused. Absolutely not. Nothing is excusing this. But I do think something happened because you cannot tell me this is the same team that made that crazy comeback against Barcelona. You cannot tell me
Yeah,
that.
like if it feels like two completely different teams. So I want to ask you this question: do you think Inter is going to have a real overhaul this summer? Like a lot of players will leave, signs will happen. Do you think any of that's going to happen, or
So I actually discussed this with many other Inter fans, like, and I still do, and we all like we kind of were in agreement that the only player really that should be like untouchable really is Bastoni. Now, realistically speaking, we don't really expect like the major players like Barella, like Lautaro, even DiMarco
oh yeah, of course
to
not.
leave. No, like despite what I'm not saying, like I personally think DiMarco should go, but I don't think he will. It's just my opinion. Hakan Çalhanoğlu has been linked with Galatasaray recently. We still need to see what happens there. I don't know if he's going to leave. He has 2 years left on his contract, so Inter still have the power of like deciding his future in that case. Arnautovic and Correa have left. Taremi might go. Like obviously, I do think some players will leave, but I am expecting a lot of like incomings. We already got Petr Sucic and Luis Enrique, and we redeemed Zalewski's by release clause, not release clause, but like buy clause from Roma. So there's that. I think that there definitely needs like I think with regardless if Inter won this final or not, like or if we won like the Scudetto, let's say, I did think that there was going to be some sort of like a retooling this summer. But the fact we went trophyless and the fact that we lost the final in this manner, this basically accelerated everything because now I think now like not only do we need some like backups, now I think we might even need some starters because I do think this team there is really no coming back from this final. Like
Yeah.
It's just there is no coming back. Like, yes, a lot of these players will still be here, but like a lot of those should not be starters anymore. And I don't know. And
Yeah.
next season, it's going to be so much pressure on them. And I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
now, it's like, especially like the fact that we got Kivu now, who is a former Inter player. But the thing is, he's managed 13 games at Parma. Like, he has managed in every Inter youth group, but like he doesn't have much experience. So there's that.
It's a big
Yeah,
jump.
it's a big, really big job, but we'll see what happens with that. But like overall, though, I think that seeing as how Inter have finished this season, and like the fact that let's call it what it is, right? Inzaghi, like people say Inzaghi should have been backed more, and to an extent, I do agree. However, here's the thing: he still had the best team in Italy for the last 4 years,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah,
only
that's
won
true.
one Scudetto in 4. That for me, it's just not good enough. And look, yes, the Champions League finals, great and all, but at the same time, if you don't
You
win,
didn't win.
ultimately, it doesn't matter. And forget about not winning. If you lose in this kind of a fashion, you may as well not even get there, because
Yeah.
this is going to be totally spoken about for the next like until Inter wins the UCL.
You
That's
know,
essentially how
and
it's
you
going to be.
yeah, and you know what's really interesting? I think I remember my commentator said this during the final. It was like this Inter team was like the second oldest team average age to reach a final.
Yeah. What's funny is the first one was the Inter in 2010, who actually won the whole thing. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, so like for me, this was like the last chance for them to win the Champions League for a lot of these core players. And now with them losing this final, I think
In
a
this
lot of
fashion.
those
And the
players
thing is, and I think it's an agreement now among Inter fan base, is that this core of Inter will, I do think, eventually win it. It's gonna eventually happen. I do
oh
think
yeah,
Inter
obviously,
will
obviously.
win it, but it's not gonna be with any of these core players. It's gonna be with a
Yeah,
completely different team.
yeah,
So,
it's gonna
and I really don't think these core players, like next season, especially big Champions League games, you cannot tell me they're not gonna have this game in their mind. Like when it gets tough, you know, they're just gonna be this. This game is gonna be
yeah, yeah, Mkhitaryan,
awful.
um,
Like so many
Achurli,
players just really, really bad.
DeMarco.
Like everyone, like
Yeah.
Dumfries, even like Sommer, like again, like the whole performance to Ram and everyone was just. That's the thing. Like it's really like embarrassing the way it happened. But the thing is, I know this team is not that bad. I've seen it, watched it like this, but I know they're not that bad. That's why I just feel like something happened. But it
Yeah.
is
So
shameful, like what happened.
okay, so let's quickly discuss about which players you want to leave, and then we'll go on the whole league itself. So
Right.
which Inter players do you think need to leave this summer? Because for me, I think Mkhitaryan needs to go. I think
He's
Mkhitaryan
not
needs
gonna.
to
Okay,
go.
I'm gonna. Do you ask? Are you asking me like realistically who's gonna go, or like who? If I was in charge of Inter, who I would like?
Oh, I guess realistically is probably the better answer.
Okay, so again, as I said, I would let DiMarco go if I had made a choice, but that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's not
Mkhitaryan,
gonna happen.
he's probably gonna just run down his contract. He has 1 year left. I don't think he's gonna leave. Hakan Çalhanoğlu realistically can leave, and I personally would sell him as long as we get a replacement. Because the thing with Hakan Çalhanoğlu is, I think last season he was arguably our best player, like our most important. He was so important for our second star for the Scudetto. But
Yeah,
this season he has had many injuries, and physically in that final especially, he looked so off of it, so off
yeah,
of it.
yeah,
It really reminds me of like Brozovic's final season was, where he also faced many injuries. But Brozovic in that Champions League final against Manchester City was actually arguably our best player. Hakan Çalhanoğlu in
yeah.
that final was awful. Nicolo Barella, I don't think he should go. I wouldn't sell him, but he's definitely someone
Obviously,
that I have so many. I have high. He's my favorite player on this team. So I have high expectations on him, and he's 28. He's like, I feel like Nico Barella has a bit regressed a bit. I'm not sure why. It's just he doesn't have that same drive. He doesn't have that same like qualities that he really used to show. Like he doesn't have that same dynamism. I don't know where it went. But if I had to like really sell some players, like Taremi, I would definitely sell. That's not negotiable. Arnautovic and Correa already left, so that's not even like needed. But yeah, I would like honestly, as I said, like for me, Bastoni is really the only like quote unquote untouchable, because like everyone else, if they got, I mean, it's whatever. But even him, like it's like I think that we probably won't largely like sell as much as I would love to like get like at least half players out. It probably is not going to happen. Some of them will probably leave. I would still say though, I would say Fratesi maybe, but at the same time, I do want to see him under a new manager. I do want to see, because I don't think Inzaghi really used him to his best abilities. Not that Fratesi is great in midfield, he's not, but he does have an eye for a goal, so I think that does count for something. So we have to see.
yeah. I think Sherby needs to go. In my opinion.
I think so, but I don't think, but not to a point like there are rumors about how like Inter might terminate his contract. The thing is, I personally, this is the thing. Like, I personally don't
That's a
have a
bit too
heart for
far.
that. I think that's a bit too far. I think at that point, just let him stay, let him be that locker room presence, and let him retire after next season. Terminating his contract just feels a bit too harsh, personally.
And then maybe Sommer, because Sommer's getting up there in age, maybe.
I think he still has another year in him, personally. I don't think he's like urgent to go, like personally.
Yeah. So now, and it's actually interesting to mention that the best team in Italy in the last 4 years, because you know it's crazy. The last time an Italian team was won the Champions League was 2010, and it was
Yeah,
by you guys, of course, Inter.
yeah, of course, yeah.
So obviously, I want you to come from a neutral point of view.
Mhm.
The fact that a French team has won the Champions League more recently than Serie A, I'm sorry, that's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. That is
I
embarrassing. I'm
mean,
sorry.
if you take into context, like, I mean, we all know Juventus's record in Champions League finals. I think that's like well documented. It's absolutely atrocious.
Oh yeah,
Milan has
obviously.
not. Milan has disappeared for like how long now in Champions League? I mean, yeah, they made the semifinals, but guess who they lost against? They lost against Inter.
Yeah.
Like, and other Serie A teams. I'm sorry, but we're never gonna like. I don't. I'm very confident. I'm never gonna see Napoli win a Champions League, for example. I don't. Let alone like. I don't even know if they're gonna reach
Oh
out.
yeah,
But in
yeah.
terms of Roma,
Yeah. Sorry, center up. Let's be real. If any Serie A team was a Champions League anytime soon, it'll be of the big three: Juve, Inter, Milan. There is no chance for Napoli. There's no chance for
right?
Fiorentina. There's no chance for Atalanta. There's no chance for
Yeah.
Roma. There's no chance for these other teams. It'll be one of these big three.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry, if the Serie A goes an entire decade without winning a Champions League,
Awful.
the 2020 decade, oh
Yeah.
my jeez, that would look embarrassing. That
I
would look
think it might
extremely
happen
embarrassing.
because the thing is, I don't know. It's really, but the thing is, and now I think this is actually a good transition to the league, right? Now that we may as well touched on it, it's like realistically though, who do you really see? I mean, let's take all the teams. Like, we all know Conte in Europe. We already know, right? Napoli's not going to do anything in Europe. If anything, I think he's going to throw the Europe. I think he's going to throw Europe to try to defend the Scudetto next
Oh
season.
yeah,
We all know Conte.
of course.
We all know Conte, right? And we all know Napoli. Roma, I think again the thing is I think Italy will probably win. I mean, Italy has won the Europa League recently, like even Atalanta did. Like, but we're talking Champions League. We're not talking Europa League,
Yeah,
right?
Champions League. Yeah,
Roma
Champions
can
League.
probably win the Europa League, but that's not the same as Champions League. Roma's not going to win the Champions League. That's not going to happen. Lazio's a joke in Europe permanently, so that's not even
Yeah.
negotiable. Milan, I mean, what are you going to do with Milan? I mean, Milan, the way they're going through, and this is what I want to say: it's like the big three, all three are looking like really weak at the moment. It's like. And you might think theoretically maybe Napoli can take advantage, but the thing is, Napoli's not going to do anything in Europe, anything meaningful. So really, what is there for the league? It's like, and I think now I should highlight the problems with like Serie A, and maybe eventually once we do get onto the Italian national team. But this is kind of where it stems from. There is this notion for some reason that maybe Fabio Capello actually came out and said like how it if the Serie A clubs are now buying too much foreign talent, they should probably use more local talent. I personally disagree because I actually don't think foreign talent is the issue. Because first of all, try telling that to a club like Inter. Inter is literally about it's known as Inter. In the name it says it's literally about giving foreigners a chance. That's how we are as a club, and I think that there's no pro like I don't think using just Italians is suddenly gonna like win you Champions League. That's not gonna happen. You need to balance it out, and you need to ultimately you need quality players, and the quality players for that you actually got to be able to compete financially, and that's where it really becomes because are you really going to compete financially speaking in the transfer market with the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, Premier League teams, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, even Barcelona, even PSG? Like, how are you really going to be able to compete with them financially, or how are you going to be able to compete with them pool wise? That's
Yeah,
why
that's the thing.
that's why. Well, now you got to turn to something. Actually, speaking of Barcelona, now you should maybe look at how they have done the rebuild in a way. Is that you look at your own talent because it's not like Italy has zero talent. That's one thing like people try to get confused. Italy has a lot of talent. It just doesn't get used. But I don't think that necessarily has to do with foreign talent being bought because I think you can definitely balance it out both ways. I think that's just incompetency from the clubs. Now, Inter, here's the interesting thing is that because Kivu knows our academy fully, I actually have a feeling that he will use our young players more that we bring in, that we already have here, like of Francesco Pio Esposito, like of Valentin Carboni and many others. So I do think in that sense, Inter at least could, if we make use of our young players, could be set better. Because I know people are going to say like maybe Inter is going to go back into the banter era. I'm just going to say this right now. it's not going to be as bad as like quote unquote banter. It's not going to be as bad as what happened in the mid 2010s.
Oh yeah, I'll be able to say.
For one,
Yeah,
because the league itself is weak. It's not like this team, despite like, yeah, maybe the coaching is a problem, but like this team is still, for me, the strongest team in Italy. Like on paper, it still is. And I think that I don't know if we're going to win the league next year or not. Way too early to say. We're in June, but like, and obviously we have the Club World Cup, so we got to see how far we go there. But as for the league itself, the thing is, there's just nobody's really ready for Europe. And there's nobody. It's like
yeah,
Juventus. I'm sorry, like Juventus is like they literally have had to extend Igor Tudor because Conte rejected them. Gasperini just came out and said, he had an offer from Juve, but he decided to go to Roma. Like he's not like they're not in pole position to actually compete in Europe. That's not gonna happen. Milan is not even in Europe, so there's that. Inter, I don't know. Next time I'll see us like go far in the Champions League. This is gonna
yeah.
deliver us. It's just way too much, and everyone else. I mean, what is there to say?
And it's interesting to say that because when we look at the best, because in the Champions League winning teams, there's usually one standout player that people talk about so much.
Right.
And when we talk about like the best players in the world, how many of those do we really say are Italian?
None.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I guess you can say if you want to go with keepers, it's Don, but he's a keeper. We're talking like difference makers. We're talking like attackers or slash midfielders. I mean, Barella should be one, but I don't think. But again, as I said, like Bastoni's a center back at the end of the day. There is nobody like that. And look, I don't know if that's necessarily the problem itself, like in that regard, because I mean, there's so many players. I mean, for example, like Real Madrid's best players aren't actually Spanish, like Kylian Mbappe. Those I think you can definitely say that.
I know, but I feel like it's kind of telling though. Like we haven't had like an Italian best player in the world.
Yeah, we haven't had like a Francesco Totti or like an Alessandro Del Piero or Roberto Baggio in like so long. Yeah, I agree.
Like that. And do you think that's another problem why we haven't had an Italian team win a Champions League?
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, yes, while you definitely can have a great foreign talent, and you should absolutely, you still need that someone like that. Like again, it really depends. Like unless it's someone like Messi or Ronaldo on your team, that's different. Like if that's you have, then yeah, that's fair.
Oh yeah, obviously.
That's obviously like an outlier. But like you definitely, I think in a way does play a part. But I do think there's some other bigger issues, as I said, like the usage, the neglect of academies, definitely one. The overall, but I think the biggest issue is that Italian clubs just do not like they are sticking to their old principles and they're very very stubborn and they have this weak mentality when heading to some European games. Like for example, like Milan, they're like especially when they're going to away games. This is why like I think some Italian clubs just try to play in this different kind of way. Sometimes they try to play this kind of fancy football and all, and then they just get exposed in Europe because they're not able to do it. They don't have the players for it, or it doesn't fit their identity. Italian clubs should stick to what they're good at. And I'm not saying parking the bus or not. Do not get that twisted. That's not what it is. But like what clubs are good at. And they need to have that mentality, that winning mentality. And especially like we all know what Champions League is about, right? Champions League is especially about moments. It's about individual brilliance and moments and like all that coming together. That's what it's about. And it's about focus. It's not just about like tactics and all that. I think Italian clubs, they just lack difference makers, ultimately. They don't have those kind of difference makers. They don't have like let's say like Barcelona have Lamine Yamal, right? No. PSG had Desiree Doué in the final and many others.
Yeah.
Real Madrid have Vinicius Jr. So many, like Liverpool have Mohamed Salah.
Yeah.
No Italian club has that kind of a player, like that difference, but that can like when it going gets tough, that player that can be like what, it's fine, come on my back, I'm gonna take you to the promised land. They don't have that. I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, and do you think that manager is also part in a way to blame as well?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, bro. Allegri in Europe. I mean, Allegri, like nowadays, it's just bro, come on. Like he lost against Maccabi Haifa, Juve, and God group. Like not what we're talking about here. Like Inzaghi, the thing with Inzaghi, that's another thing, and it really makes this final even worse, is that like Inzaghi has actually like in that 2023 final, Inzaghi literally put Inter toe to toe with Manchester City, who was just dominating everyone. Arguably should have won. But then this final, I think he himself was distracted by that Saudi offer, and I think that played a part. That's just the thing. There's so many other examples. Like I do think that coaching is definitely another thing. But Italian coaches usually are able the problem with Italian coaches is they're stubborn. It's either plan A for them, and if plan A doesn't their plan B is try to plan A again. Like there is no plan B. It's just if plan A works, then it's good. If it doesn't, then it's looking bad. Really.
And let me just ask you this question: when you think of the best Italian managers right now, it's only Ancelotti. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Like that's
I mean,
all.
Inzaghi just
S tier.
left Inter after this result. Like his stock is absolutely all time low right now. Like,
Yeah, and
really,
Conte,
really.
we know he's a league. We know as good as he is. We know he's a league merchant. And
Yeah.
Mancini, the less of the better. We know
Allegri's
he's still
washed.
Mancini.
Like, yeah.
Now, like so, like you see where I'm coming from. Like only Ancelotti's like a world, like a really
And
good.
even then,
The
you
rest
could
of them-
argue that he probably, in club football, maybe it kind of like top level of club football maybe has left him. Like, even then, you can argue, like, yeah, there is that in that sense. It's like, Italian coaches, like, you definitely need more. I also think, though, that another thing is that, especially Italian media, especially, I think we need to touch on. Italian media
Ooh.
is brutal. They're brutal. Like, if you think English and Spanish media are bad, Italian media is brutal. Like, especially when talking about the big three. The big three of Italy, especially, the media focuses the most on them and their fans. Like Inter fans, for example, like we are very passionate and we support our team through thick and thin, but we also expect a lot. And especially after this, like I literally spoke to some Inter fans here in LA, some match going Inter fans. They straight up told me like they will support the team, of course, they will back it. But next season, during home games, expect there to be tension. Expect to be like much more, you know, look at the like they're gonna like minimize and see just how dissect the team fully because after what happened this season in the final they're gonna be under so much pressure that and it's the same with Milan fans, it's the same with UEFA fans, like and any player that goes to these kind of clubs, when the media is on you, when they're asking you questions, when the fans are like always expecting a lot, it's gonna get tough. It's really gonna get tough. And I think that's another thing, especially in European nights where there is still a big expectation. I mean, 15 years of no Champions League is just it's insane. Like that's
It's embarrassing.
it's really embarrassing.
So let me ask you those questions. So let's wrap it up this year out part. So let's get to the question: are we really going to have an entire decade with no Champions League winners from Italy?
So the decade ends in 2030, right?
Well, it's 2029. Yeah, it's
No, I would
2029.
say they're 2030. Yeah,
Okay.
I would say 2030.
Okay, 2030.
It's hard to say, because in football, so many things can change quickly. Like
Yeah.
right now, I would say it's not gonna happen for a long time. So maybe it does happen. I mean, technically, Serie A has already gone a decade without a Champions League. It's a halfway away from two. I'm gonna take a guess and say that it doesn't happen. Like I think, okay, here's the thing. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe some people might call me biased for this. I think Inter will win a Champions League in the next 5 to 10 years. I do think it's gonna happen.
I feel like of all the Serie A teams of the big three, I think Inter is in the best position.
No, yeah, because I think this banter, quote unquote banter, is not gonna last. First of all, I don't think it's even gonna be a banter. It's just gonna be, probably a top four fight, and then maybe see. I think we will win a league title in few seasons, and then, eventually go up. Because I just don't see Juventus. Juventus have a lot of like problems and like major problems. Like, they spend so much money, and their season went like 200 million spent for a match day 38 against Venezia to qualify for Champions League on the final match day. Like,
yeah, so it's bad.
and Milan, I mean, Milan don't have Europe right now, but I'm sorry. Like, yeah, Napoli didn't have Europe last season, but that doesn't suddenly mean that Milan's going to now do what Napoli did and win the Scudetto. First of all,
And
I'm sorry, but
yeah.
Allegri's washed. Like, let's say that.
And I also feel like both Juve and Milan board are very incompetent.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Like, Inter's board, I think that they definitely lacked preparation. Like, Marotta came out and said, like, how he wasn't expecting Inzaghi to actually leave. I think it's a lie. I think he's trying to save face. I think Inter knew that he was going to leave regardless before the final. They did try to speak to him after, but I think Inzaghi's mind was already... I think Inzaghi was going to leave regardless if Inter won or lost, because it basically got confirmed.
Yeah.
So Inter, I think, in a way, kind of poorly planned that, maybe we should have been a bit more attentive. Maybe we should have tried. I mean, we tried to get Cesc Fabregas, but Como didn't allow it. So this is what it was. We got Kivu. But but I think that as long as Beppe Marotto's here, as long as Javier Zanetti and Pujiro, Zilio, and others are here, they do deserve scrutiny to an extent, except Zanetti. Aronos does, but like I think that we should be okay, or hopefully okay, going forward. It is going to depend a lot this summer and this season, though. But I think in next 5 to 10 years, I do think Inter is going to win a Champions League. I do think it's going to happen one day at least. But as for the decade, though, I think Serie A is going to go 2 decades without it, personally.
And you guys know I love Serie A. In fact, it was one of my favorite leagues to watch this last season. Like it was so competitive, so fun to watch. But in terms of quality, it just doesn't
Quality
get.
gotta be better. I do agree. But the thing is,
Sorry.
the only way the quality improves though, but the thing is, as much as Inter is getting clowned right now, and rightfully so, we did just lose it. Let's be honest. Inter losing a Champions League final 5-0 doesn't suddenly make Milan a better team. It doesn't suddenly solve Juve's issues. It doesn't suddenly solve the
No.
league. That just Inter losing like this just shows that yeah, Inter's got a lot of problems. Yes, of course, we all know it's embarrassing, but like the league itself, it has to improve quality wise, and there's so many things that need to improve. So many things. Marketing of the league has to improve. You know, the officiating is still pretty suspect. You know, the teams themselves got to improve the playing style. A lot of it, identities, a lot of change. I think that league needs, and ultimately they need to somehow find a way to like become a much more lucrative league. That's
Yeah,
ultimately what it's going to come down to.
and because I'm looking at the Serie A record post 2010. Juve's made two Champions League finals, 2015, 2017.
Lost both.
They lost to Barca and Real Madrid. So, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, and then obviously Inter two
Yes, lost
finals.
two as well.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's looking bad because you could probably make an argument that all those teams that won the Champions League finals against the Serie A teams were the favorites.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's looking peak for Serie A, and I'm be honest with you, Doodle. I hate to say this, but I think I unfortunately will agree. I don't think it, I don't. I think Inter's gonna do it, but I don't think they'll do it in the 2020 decade. I think
Yeah, no, I
2030 is
don't
the
think
case
so
where we
either.
see.
Again, I said it's gonna eventually we will do it. Like eventually the drought is gonna end. Let's be honest. I don't. I think it's gonna be next 5 to 10 years, somewhere like around that, like 2032, 33, somewhere like around there. I think it's gonna happen, but I don't know. But the thing is, I don't. Yeah, I agree. It's just it's not gonna happen. Like, but the thing is, you know what's sad? Despite all this, Serie A teams, they're still like they can still be a tough. They can still be difficult teams to beat in Europe. Like as a way, like Serie A. One thing it's never going to lose its atmosphere is that the Serie A teams are very very difficult to go away to. I mean, you saw like Inter, you know, the San Siro, the way it was just reacted after the Acerbi goal against Barcelona. It was just insane. Like even Milan, like whenever like they play at home in Europe, they can be like Napoli and Roma themselves, with all due respect, like they can still also be intimidating places to go to. So there's that. But like again, like I think that during the finals or during those kind of like moments, that's where Serie A teams ultimately slip up. And this wasn't even a slip up, to be fair, from Inter. This is just straight up domination, like demolition. But like my point is, I think that the mentality has to change, especially in Europe. There needs to be like because it is possible. We have seen Serie A teams knock some big teams out before. Like it's possible. It just has, but the mentality has to change, and a lot needs to change. And like, and ultimately, while do not die, maybe not directly, but it does culminate into what we're seeing from the Italian national team. Really, this mentality, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is a great segue to the Italy national team. So as you guys know, a few weeks ago, Italy lost to Norway 3-0. And now there's a lot of reports, and obviously Spalletti's got sacked, and there's a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors.
Gennaro Gattuso is going to take over. Yeah.
Yeah, Gattuso is going to take over. And there's a lot of doubts around the Italian media and even the Italian players and probably the Italian fans that Italy might miss three consecutive World Cups. And keep in mind, the 2026 is with 48 nations. UEFA is getting 16 spots, basically one third of the countries are European. And you can't even qualify?
Especially for Italy.
It's
4 times World Cup champions. 4 times. To
four-time
put
World
things
Cup
into
champions.
perspective, right? The last time Italy was in a World Cup, I was 11 years old. I'm 22 now. 11 years ago, last time Italy were in the World Cup. 11 years.
So, and that was obviously 2014. And remember, guys, 2014, 2010, they were grouped. So we haven't even seen
So
Italy
really,
be at
we
their
haven't
best.
seen them in the knockout stages since they won it, actually, in 2006.
And that is crazy. That is crazy. So let's just start with a simple question first. Is Italy really going to miss three World Cups in a row? Let's start with that first.
The thing is, right? I mean, even the Moldova game that they won, that was an awful performance. Like Moldova arguably should have like at least got a draw that game. Like there were so many. They created Moldova at home, by the way, at home for Italy. Moldova created like They had 18 shots, I think, 7 on target.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. That's
and
embarrassing.
Moldova had a goal disallowed. Like, that's just embarrassing. Like, I think it was like, let's also not forget, since that video that we made, that was like, when we made that video, that was like after Italy lost against North Macedonia, right? I'm pretty sure. After
Yeah.
they failed to qualify
Yeah.
the World Cup. Since then, this is what has happened. Italy, since then, barely got through their Euros group just to lose embarrassingly against Switzerland in one of the worst displays from Italian national team that I've ever seen in my life. Like, they were awful in that game, and they got knocked out. And since then, like, that was Spalletti's first tournament, and like, he immediately, like, favoritism played a part. Again, playing Di Lorenzo just because he was from Napoli, like, just made no sense. And again, and I think that ultimately cost Spalletti is that he had so many favorites playing. But now I'm gonna get into the Norway game. Norway game happened 6 days after the Champions League final. He started Nicola Barella and Alessandro Bastoni 6 days after what happened in Munich. I literally said that Italy's going to lose it if he does that, and he did it, and they lost 3-0. And Barella and Bastoni did not play well at all, but of course they didn't. They're meant physically, and especially mentally, they were physically and mentally exhausted. They just lost the final 6-0, like 6 days ago, 5-0 in the Champions League final. They were not in any shape or form ready to play that game. And Italian national team as a whole, like, they had some injuries, sure, but still 3-0 to Norway? Like, Norway? Like, really, bro? Like, embarrassing. Like, I think overall, for me personally, I just think that, and this is the thing, like, people talk about domestic talent in Italy. Like, again, I strongly still believe that foreign talent is not the issue. You need foreign players as clubs to actually, like, you know, at the end of the day, clubs are trying to win, right? At the end of the day, main concept of football is winning. But when it comes to the national team itself, I mean, there's so many players that I'm seeing playing for U21s that should be playing for the senior team. Like, why? I'm not even Italian, but I'm saying that. Like, why would you do that? There's like, and the usage of young talent in Italy has been really bad and has been managed horribly despite everything. And that affects the national team. But at the same time, the national team also has lost its identity. It's not defense. Like, Italy, at least in the past, used to be known as a good defensive team. They're not that anymore. Hasn't been for a long time.
Yeah, they're not.
That already is like that. Like, I mean, defend, like, again, even against Moldova, do not let the clean sheet fool you. Moldova had many chances. That's not good defending. That, like, 18 shots from Moldova, that is awful defending. And then obviously lost 3-0 against Norway, and obviously last year they lost against Switzerland in Euros. Like, so many times, it's like, attacking wise, I mean, Retegui, I'm sorry, this Retegui, I'm going to tell you about Retegui, right? This guy, he scored 24 goals in Serie A, which on paper looks good, right? 10 of those goals came against Genoa and Verona. 10 of those goals, almost half, came against those. And most of the goals that he scores are against mid-table to relegation teams, tap-ins, and penalties. He never shows up in big games. Never.
So you're saying he's a stat pattern?
He's a stat. He is. He's a stat pattern. And that's Italy's main striker. Argentina's fifth choice striker, by the way. He didn't get, the only reason he plays for Italy is because Argentina didn't actually call him up. And of course they didn't. And look at the difference. Argentina won the World Cup and 2 Copa Americas. Italy didn't even qualify for World Cup for, like, since 2014.
It's crazy because when you look at these players in the past, so you have the players like Maldini, you got Baggio, you got Gattuso,
you had Francesco Totti, Alessandro Del Piero, Chiellini, Buffon, Cannavaro, so many.
And now I'm looking at these proper players. You got Donnarumma.
Donnarumma's good, I would say, world class. Bastoni's despite the final, Bastoni's still, for me, top 3 center back in the world. Barella should be world class, but again, as I said, I feel like he kind of regressed a bit. Di Marco's not world class. That final absolutely, like, takes that away.
Yeah, Di Lorenzo, Retegui, Moise Kean. Like, you see where I'm coming from? Like, the drop off on quality is so massive.
And that's because the domestic talent, that it doesn't get used. There is talent in Italy. It just doesn't get used properly. So there's that. Then you hire, like, I'm sorry, like, with all due respect, like, Spalletti tried to, like, when they got Spalletti, right, I was already saying this is not going to work. And the reason why, Spalletti, he thought that the way he was, like, trying to play Italy, he's like, he was trying to, almost as if it's club football. Let's be honest. International football, club football are not the same. As an international
very
manager,
different.
As an you don't get as much time with that. Your job is call up the best possible players, put them in their best positions. Just give them, like, minor instructions. Tell them, like, yeah, guys, you know how you play for the club or not? Okay, just do what you got to do. Go out there and win. That's all they got to do. Like, and this is why when we talk about style of play, you can't really set a style of play on a national team. because you don't get as much time. This is why, for me, whenever English fans, for example, complain about Southgate and all, sure, I guess in a way you can complain, but like he still got you to 2 Euro finals, like and a World Cup semifinals. So like you're not really going to get that much style of play. Yeah, you can definitely criticize national team managers, but mostly because for their selections or for their substitutions, in-game management, not really like before that. But
Yeah.
like that's the problem's a problem. So I think that's another issue with that. Italy haven't really had a great coach. Like last time Italy had a truly like Spalletti is a good coach, but he's more suited to club football than he is to national team. National team. I actually suggested last year, people after me saying Italy should get Allegri because I think Allegri might be washed at club level, but his style of football is suited to international football. Like being very compact defensively, trying to absorb pressure and all, playing the waiting game. That is actually what international football really is. Because at the end of the day, especially international football, who really cares if you play like ugly? If it ends in a trophy, I mean, I don't think France have. I don't think France have really played that great football under Deschamps ever. But they won a World Cup. They made another World Cup final. Because at the end of
Yeah.
the day, that's tournament football. That's how it should be. Italy
And look
tried
at
to
England.
move away from that. Try to move away from that. Try to instill because Spalletti won the Scudetto with Napoli. He played great football, so let's do it here. That's not gonna. That is not the same as like national team. He had all the time with Napoli. He's not gonna get that time if national team. And Gattuso, I'm sorry, like Gattuso, yeah, that's like he just got fired by Hajduk Split in Croatia. Like that's really the national team coach that you are gonna rely on. Yes, maybe he can give that grinta, maybe he can get that fighting spirit, but I'm sorry, like that alone is not going to get them. Like, even if they qualify for World Cup, I don't think Italy's going to do much of the World Cup. I'm just saying right now. Even if they qualify, let's say. Like, I can see
Okay,
them getting
so
grouped.
let's address the question. Are they missing 3 World Cups in a row? I'm gonna say no, but I will say I'm not confident with this. They're gonna
It's
barely
hard to
squeeze
say
through.
because theoretically, no. But at the same time, would it be a surprise? No.
No, it wouldn't be a shock.
So,
Like,
really? Like, we've seen them lose against North Macedonia. We saw them with Sweden. Like, it's not. And they let Moldova play, like, toe to toe with them in Italy, by the way. So, who's to say? Like honestly, like I can see them drop points even against like maybe even Moldova away, maybe against Israel, maybe these kind of teams. Like they might not even beat Norway at home. Who knows? Like let's get something clear, right? They're not gonna top Norway's goal difference. Like that 3-0 already.
yeah,
Yeah, they're not
Norway for
gonna be
me.
Norway. They have to be Norway by 3 goals or more to actually be able to.
Yeah,
That's not gonna happen. That is
and
not
for
gonna
me,
happen.
I think Norway's directly qualifying. I think it's
Yeah,
over.
for me, same as well. And Norway's been one of those like we've all Norway have talent, but like Norway's not that good though. Like 3-0, really, bro? Like 3-0?
And this team hasn't qualified for an national tournament in so many years, I believe.
Yeah, like
So
I think for me, like overall, there's so much problem. But it all starts from federation. Let's address that. Whenever national teams are bad, let's be honest. Who is at fault at most? You can blame
it's
the
the
players,
federation.
you can blame the
You
coach, you
blame
can
the
even blame the
coach.
fans, the media, the federation. There's so many examples. The Italian Federation is filled with corruption and nepotism. They keep hiring their buddies. They're like cool guys, we're all friends. Like, I'm sorry, that right there is a mistake. Like that, if you do that, then you're just like you're lowering the standards as a whole. Italy's standard, forget about qualifying for the World Cup. Italy's standard should be winning the World Cup. That should be the expectation.
The
That's
bare
not what
minimum
it
is
is.
qualify.
Yeah, like I mean, in the past, qualification for Italy, like their goal was to win the World Cup. Like, let alone qualify or anything. Their goal was to win the World Cup. That was the standards. That standards have completely dropped now. That's not there anymore. This is why, when compared to like Brazil, look, Brazil. Let's say right, Brazil is in the shambles of their own, right? But Brazil's gonna still like Brazilians still like expect them to like still go far in the World Cup because it's Brazil. That's kind of how Italy used to be, and how Germany, like these nations that have so many World Cups, like for me, Italy, the thing of Italy is like there needs to be so many like changes. Like there's so much like I don't think while the league maybe not being as high quality wise is definitely also affecting that national team. I think ultimately the federation and the nepotism and the horrible usage of young talent and really questionable decision making in hiring managers. I think that all really culminates into what you're getting now. But at the end of the day, how the federation operates, how the national team plays, that's the reflection of the work. And if this is how the national team has been playing for how many years now, Not good enough. And yes, they won the Euros, but let's be honest. I feel like that Euros, now we're going to look back and it feels like a mirage in the middle of a desert. It felt like a mirage. It felt like it worked. And then, yeah, instantly.
And not to downplay Italy or anything. Let's be real. England should have won that. England basically went so defensive in that final. If England didn't go so defensive, they would have won it.
They could have won it. Yeah. Like, yeah, Italy probably were the better team, but of course they were because like they had the ball. England just went defensive. That's why. That's the thing. It wasn't like Spain. Look, Spain, we all know have been were the deep. Look, I think Italy were still quote unquote the best team in the tournament in Euros. I still think, but like at the same time though, if you remember those games, like especially like in the knockouts, like who's the better team, Spain or Italy? This Spain team would have beaten that Italian team. Let's be honest. I mean, worse Spain, considerably worse Spain, took that team to penalties. Worse Spain, by the way, who lost to Morocco in 2022.
Yeah, and I'm sure. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna ask you, and I'm pretty sure you can ask most Italians this question: would they rather win the Euros or qualify for the World Cup? I can assure you, most of them will pick to qualify for the World Cup.
Well, the thing is, a lot of Italians are saying, well, they're like trying to laugh at Germany. They're like, at least they won the Euros recently. Germany haven't won anything, and just because Germany have qualified, they got grouped and all. The thing is, okay, fine. Look, trophy's a trophy, right? Euros is big. It's a whole. But at the same time,
obviously.
Why are you really laughing at Germany though? Like, yes, don't get me wrong. Germany's not in a perfect place or anything, but at the same time, it's like
Germany. At least they made it.
Yeah, I mean, Germany are much more set up. They look. I'm not saying Germany's gonna win a World Cup or anything, but like, at least they're gonna qualify. At least they're gonna have a chance. If you don't qualify at all, what are you gonna do? Sit there? I don't get this narrative of may as well not qualify and all. Look, bro, like at the same time, that's like me saying I mean, look, you can say that for like, let's say, if Inter knew like we were going to lose 5-0 in Champions League final, then you can say you may as well just go out to Barcelona in the semis. Then sure, that's different. But like not qualifying for the World Cup as Italy, really, bro?
No, that's cowardly.
3 World Cups in a row, really?
That's
yes,
cowardly.
The Euros is good, but who cares about the Euros now? Like the Euros is forgotten now. That does not matter because you didn't qualify for a World Cup after that. You were awful in the last Euros. Like Italy was awful in the last Euros. Let's be honest. They should have lost against Croatia. They should have gone out to Croatia. Instead, they squeaked through just to then lose badly against Switzerland in a game that they did nothing.
And let's be real. World Cup is the biggest tournament in football. It's not the Champions League. It's not the Serie A.
It's the World Cup.
It's the World Cup. World Cup. And so, for me, not qualify for the World Cup is embarrassing. And people don't realize, like, Italy is a huge national team. It's not like some mid, because with how bad Italy's been so many in the last couple of years, people think, oh, Italy's a
for me, there's 5 national teams that like define football when you think about football: Brazil, Italy, Germany, Argentina, and France. For me, those 5. People might argue England, but England haven't won anything for so long. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you. I actually agree with you.
Like those 5 for me. And out of those 5, for me, my personal ranking, I think Brazil's the number 1 because they have the most.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Duh.
I think for me, Germany's probably maybe number 2 because they have like many World Cups and probably like the most successful European national team. I think you can argue. And then you can argue it's Italy after that. Like Italy and Germany very close to each other because, I mean, at the same time, like they have the World Cups, 4 World Cups, and like made many finals as well. Like, we all know, and it used to be a powerhouse. Like, yes, Argentina and France are also there, but like Italy's like, and so many great football. Like, Serie A used to be the strongest league for a long time. Italian national team used to be the strongest for a long time, and that's the thing. And now it feels like, and it really is fitting though that Italy's last time Italy was good, like truly like powerhouse, was 2006, and as everyone knows, that was the year where everything changed for Italian football because of Calciopoli, 2006. That's when everything shifted. And that really ties back to only like 4 years. And yes, 1 year later, Milan did win the Champions League in 2007. Yes, after that, 4 years later, 3 years later after that, Inter won the Champions League. But like that was like the end. That was the end. That was the end of the cycle. Like that 2010, after Inter lifted the Champions League, that was basically the cycle of Italian dominance ending. And since then, the national team, as you can see, this is how it has been. And the club football, I mean, Italy since then, Serie A has had a bit of a resurgence in terms of like, it's not like as bad as it was like during those years when Juventus dominated, but still long ways to go. And I think really you can see like, while they're not directly connected fully, you can still see the patterns of them like matching. Like Serie A is not lacking a bit of a success in Europe. Like in Europe, in like, I mean, Champions League. Yeah, they have Europa League and Conference League. There's that, but like Champions League wise, they lack success there. And national team has not really had like, yeah, they haven't won the Euros, but they haven't qualified for the World Cup, and ultimately that's gonna be remembered with this team. Like, yeah,
Yeah, that's embarrassing. And for me, as a neutral, I want to see Italy, man. I want to see Italy at the World Cup. Like I want
it
because
just feels so
I
wrong though, not seeing them in the World
yeah,
Cup. It feels so
they're a big
wrong.
nation. They're a big national team. Like I'm not gonna let this recency bias like fool me. Like they're one of the biggest national teams of all time.
Yeah. And
So
that's why they're expecting. Like, imagine if Brazil didn't qualify for a World Cup, like, or if Germany, what would happen? That's
no,
what happened with Italy in
it
2018 and in 2022. Like,
yeah, but and this is the thing with the World Cup is it doesn't matter who's in it or who's not in it. It's the World Cup in the day, so we have to live with it. But ultimately, it will be a shame. It will be a disgrace for to
the
have
thing is,
Italy
though,
not
you know
in it.
what's sad though is that first time it happened when they didn't qualify, it was a shock. Second time, especially after winning Euros, it was a shock as well. But now third time, it's like, you know what? I mean, honestly, now it's like now it's kind of expected. And that's the biggest sad. It's like now people are expecting Italy not to qualify. Like everyone's like, nobody's gonna be surprised because now this is what happens. Like now nobody's gonna be surprised. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me three times, shame on Italy. That's basically how it is.
Yeah, so Italy, man, we'll see if they can do it, man, because it'll be a disgrace if they don't make the World Cup for the
The
third
thing
time in
is
a row.
also when we saw about Champions League, like I know this might be a very crazy thing to say, but when is the next time? When will the next time be when Italy lift the World Cup?
Um, okay, no, that's actually a good way to round off. I'm gonna say the next time will be.
It will. I think it's gonna happen one day.
Oh,
Italy's way too
obvious,
big.
obviously.
It's gonna happen one day. They're way
I'm
too
gonna
big of a
say
national team.
I'm gonna say after 2040. I don't see anything before 2040.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
think
latest
that
I see.
I actually think I'm gonna make a prediction. I think that Italy will get a Champions League winner way before the World Cup winner, right?
Oh, yeah,
Maybe
obviously,
even
obviously.
someone. Like, look, I think maybe even some. Like, I think that once Italy, personally, I'll actually try to maybe we should end in a bit of a positive note. Maybe it's copium. I don't know. I think once Italy do eventually have a Champions League winner, I think that the drought won't be as long. I think that eventually they will. I do think Serie A is eventually gonna pick it up. I do think once it does have that winner, maybe those clubs will then, I do think it takes one winner and then suddenly everyone's gonna like, realize what's going on, like what to do. But World Cup though, if it happening every 4 years with what's going on, like, but like it's like at the end of the day, it's like for Italian national team, they're gonna need a lot, like, and who knows what's gonna happen. But right now, the future for Italian football as a whole is looking very, very dark, especially for the national team, because I do think that the Serie A clubs they will eventually it's gonna happen. Like I think Inter is gonna eventually win the Champions League, and it's everything's gonna like come down to that. But like Italian national team though, I don't know when they're gonna win the World Cup next time or even
Yeah,
close.
because essentially you say that because Italy won the World Cup 2006, and then Milan won the Champions League the year after 2007.
Hmm.
And remember they were in the final 2005.
Yeah,
So maybe if an Italian team wins the Champions League or like makes the final, maybe.
I
Well,
think it's
actually, I think
gonna
it would be.
definitely. Obviously, they're not related and all, but like in a way. But it's like I do think it's gonna like boost some confidence. I think the fact that Italy have not won a World Cup for like 19 years, because 2006 was 19 years ago. Like
Yeah,
that's how long, and obviously haven't won a Champions League for 15 years. It's big. I think that's taken a lot of mental toll on both the clubs and the league and itself. But again, as I said, everything that's problematic with Serie A, because FIGC, which is the federation, Italian federation, obviously they run both the Serie A and the Italian national team. What happens in Serie A and Italian national team, it's it's their responsibility, and ultimately they're really that's where the problem stems. Because while the problems are different, ultimately they always will coincide. Because Italian national team, it's the representation of Italian football at the end of the day. Italian clubs, their representation of Italian football in European competitions. So really, it's looking very, very dark, I think. But at the end of the day, I do think that one day, I do personally believe that Italian football will one day resurrect itself, because it's way too big. Like the way Spanish football is going to do it, I think, the way English football, like Italian football is way too big not to like one day stand up again. I do truly believe it's going to happen, but it's going to be a long, long era before that. And I think a lot of pain is going to go through that. But as part of, but if you're at your low, the only thing I can say to round it off is that when you're at your lowest, the only way is up. And this is how I see it for Inter because of what the low that we have hit. This is the lowest that we have hit, probably, arguably. The only way is up. And I think that's ultimately what's going on with Italian football and Italian national team.
Yeah, so we'll see, man. Because I want to see Italy at the World Cup next year, man. I'd be ashamed.
It's crazy though that like 2 years, a couple of years ago when we made that video, we were like doom. It was like doom and gloom. It just got worse since then. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And you know what's really interesting? One thing I will say before I round off. Remember the nations that made the World Cup final that year? We had Brazil, Italy. Right. What are we saying? what are we saying?
I mean, it happened twice in history. Brazil won both times. True. But
Yeah. True. I mean, we'll see. But I think for Italy, they need to worry about qualifying first.
Look, I do think Italy's going to one day win the World Cup. Like, I think it's going to happen one day. They're too big not to do it. But, like, that's going to happen for a long, long time. And we got to see.
So, we'll see what happens. But anyways, hope you guys did enjoy this long video, guys. It was a really long one. So if there's any key points we've got to mention, let us know in the comments below. Of course.
The thing is, at the end of the day, what happens to Italian football in general, it affects rest of football as well. That's how monumental Italian football is.
Yeah, Italy football is massive. So, like I said, if there's any key points that we forgot to mention, let us know in the comments below. Of course, also, I joined Doodle's Discord server. He'll leave a link in the description below to the official Serie A server. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can discuss all Serie A stuff. And yeah, guys, remember guys to like and subscribe as well if you guys did enjoy. And once again, thank you, Doodle, for coming on, man. Do appreciate it.
Now I gotta head out soon for the Club World Cup game. So yeah.